We're going to call the regular City Council meeting to order on April 15, 2014. Would everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Middleton.
Here.
Council President Henderson. Here. Councilor Grant.
Here.
Councilor Folsom. Here. Councilor Butterfield.
Here.
Councilor Langer.
Here.
Councilor Clark. Here. Thank you.
On the consent agenda, we'll have approval of April 1st, 2014 City Council minute meetings. And Sylvia, you need to add something.
Mayor and Council, prior to approving the minutes, I need to make a correction, just a Scrivener's error to page 1. The call to order, I had an error in the time, and as far as the attendees, I just need to make a correction to when Councilor Grant was attended that. So I just made a small error there. I don't believe at this point it requires an amendment to motion. It's just a Scrivener's error.
I have an amendment on page 13. It lists the motion from Councilor Folsom passed 6-1. I did not vote for that. As you can see in the text, I talked very vehemently against that. So the vote to reflect 5-2, with me opposed as well. So I would like to move that the draft be amended to state that the vote is 5-2, still passing, Clark opposed.
So I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. You have a call for a vote, Mayor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Council. So you have a motion to amend. Now you have a motion to approve.
Well, I'm still got to do the resolution too. On the consent, we also have Resolution 2014-022, appointing a pro tem municipal judge.
Motion
Okay.
to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Citizen comments. I have two forms. The first one is Michael Buffington.
Hi, Michael Buffington. I live at 22511 Southwest Dewey Drive in Sherwood. And I just had a couple questions about the proposed language to the City Council rules, or the proposed changes to the City Council rules. There's some language there I think that might be a little bit vague and leave room for misinterpretation. One of the proposed changes says that the mayor, and let me see what section this is. It's D2. The mayor, in consultation with the city council president and city manager, shall prepare the agenda for city council meetings. That part's not so vague, but I'm curious about what happens if that rule is broken. And I don't need instant response, obviously, but I'm just curious. And then following that, it says an amendment to a published city council meeting agenda must be approved by the mayor, city manager, and council president to changes to a council meeting. Again, what happens if that can't be done? What if people are out of town? There's nothing in there that says what might happen if those rules aren't followed. And then I had another question last week or 2 weeks ago. Councilor Grant suggested that the WCC required that the City Council pass a resolution to appoint a liaison. I looked up their rules, and it doesn't say anything about that at all. So I'm wondering if you're reading from different rules or if you've got communication.
That's correct. It was my understanding, but right after I said that, it was corrected by Sylvia that it was a letter. So I was incorrect that it was a request by them, but not in their bylaws. Or
Okay.
Yeah, we corrected it right then.
Okay, I might have missed it. And that's it.
Thank you.
I don't think the timer was going, by the way.
Oh,
No.
thank you.
Oh.
Daniel King.
My name is Daniel King. I reside at 17864 Southwest Henry Street. And the reason why I'm here in your council comments tonight, to be brief, it's only 4 minutes. I attended this meeting last 2 weeks ago, and what I saw displayed during that meeting wasn't exactly what my expectation or any expectation as a citizen of Sherwood should have. I used to serve up there on that board a few years ago, and in all my years of public service, whether it was the Parks Board, Planning Commission, or the City Council, I had never come across a situation where we had people attacking each other on the council.
Dan, is your button up?
Is it working now?
There we
Yeah.
go.
And so, like this gentleman was asking before about council rules, what happens? And in my mind, we have these council rules right here on the agenda tonight, and I've read through those rules many times. And I think my case here, a couple of them, is that the situation with the Planning Commission and James Crawford, for one, I'll begin with that one. Whether you're happy or not with someone's performance in any part of a commission or a group or whatever in this town, never let it become personal. Never express it publicly in this forum or the newspaper. And what has happened, what has evolved over this time, is the process is broken down. And I believe Councilor Grant focused on that heavily last time, about the process that we are going through. And what I'm seeing is that this council has broken down. The process is completely shut down. The trust, in this forum, whether you're in council or in a newspaper, you're battling ideas, okay? You're winning the hearts and minds of people with ideas. You don't attack people in those forums. And I personally am disappointed to see that there are people on this board who are attacking, whether it's a person on the Planning Commission, whether it's the YMCA, or another counselor. And a good example of that would be the mayor's comments at the last meeting when he talked about Councilor Langer. I mean, he made the accusation. There was nothing to back it up. I never saw anything, I never heard anything that would implicate him in any wrongdoing whatsoever. Yes, he is a private developer. Yes, he's out there to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, whether everyone agrees with what he does is another, that's a whole other issue. But we live in America. This is what people do with their property. They develop it. They for the betterment. And I don't see anything in the newspaper or anywhere that Mr. or Councilor Langer has done anything wrong. And I'm tired of the attacks and nothing happening. It hasn't just happened here in council. It's happened in the newspaper, and it's happened against organizations. And so I sit here today as a citizen of this community and as a former member of this council. And I ask for you to stand up and enforce your own rules.
Thank you. 4 minutes is up. Mara Broadhurst?
I may add that I request that the council do a public reprimand of the mayor. That's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Mara Broadhurst, 28440 Southwest Lad Hill Road, Sherwood, Oregon. The public workshop at the last Planning Commission meeting was a civic joy. The round-robin approach presented by the staff to promote discussion of the varied multitude of issues currently under plan stimulated a freedom of discussion from a wide variety of voices. It was a great demonstration of democracy in action. The open and transparent access to the staff's knowledge of the issues was an added luxury. In a mutually respectful atmosphere of creative problem-solving, the participation of the planning commissioners and Councilor Folsom connected the community with the benefit of their leadership and experience. It was a positive reaffirmation that those we have trusted to look out for Sherwood's future have been doing a thorough and conscientious job. The wrap-up at the end of the meeting represented the collective perspective. It gave us all the opportunity to evaluate and assess Sherwood's growing pains in a proactive approach, mindful of our place in the broader picture. The respect given to our concerns and the value placed on our thoughts will continue as the issues raised work their way through the public process. Thank you to all for sharing your generous use of time and making civic responsibility a pleasure to exercise. Thank you.
Thanks, Mar. That's the second time we've done that, Jill. You guys did a great job. The first time was real popular, too, so those are great. Jan Hatcher. Didn't want to scare you.
I think you forgot me because I
No.
came really early. Okay. Do I need to give my address? Because I moved.
No.
Okay. You still know I'm here in
Yeah.
Sherwood. Only 4 blocks away. Okay, on April 9th, my mobility instructor, Dan Arnold, came and he kind of was walking through the neighborhood with me and pointing out a few things. And Glen Eagle and Sherwood Boulevard, the bus stop is planted in the middle of an arborvitae bush. So I don't know who, to ask about that. But anyway, we walked down Sherwood Boulevard, and he is suggesting that we, if possible, if we could put in an audible signal for the light there at the school. He said because of the schools, not only because of the children, but the seniors and people with disabilities, people in wheelchairs, it would be really, really helpful. And the last time we talked about sidewalks, and I didn't know what was on the agenda, and it'd be nice to see some sidewalk repairs along Sherwood Boulevard, because I can walk a couple feet, and then I just, they're just really coming up kind of bad. And so for the senior center, we walked through there and noticed that I know that they don't have to, but it would be really nice. He was saying that if they could put some of the, you know what I'm talking about when I said the truncated domes, the yellow tactile that would tell you from, okay, I'm on the curb and I'm ready to cross over into the street. That it would be really helpful for the seniors, and also they need to go in there and they need to paint the safety yellow in there because the seniors, a lot of them are losing their vision, and it would just be really helpful. And he said not only for us, but it is a liability issue. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Jan, are you talking about the signal at the school?
At the school, yes.
Right by the senior center?
Yes,
Okay.
that signal. So I don't know if I thought about talking to Bob, and then
Tom's here, so he can...
he is? Oh,
yeah.
okay. I didn't know. Hi, Bob.
I had a question on something that she asked as well, Joe or Tom, I don't know who could. She said that on Sherwood Boulevard, that the sidewalks, are those owned by the school district or are they owned by us?
More than likely, who would they be? School district,
The
probably.
signal's Washington County.
No, not the signal, the sidewalks.
The sidewalks are most likely in city right away. So,
City right away?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, what would be would be really nice even this. I'm at Carriage Place now. They let me in, even though I'm not quite 55, but another year and a half. But it would be nice to have from there at least up to the senior center to think about some
We'll get with
sidewalks.
Jen. Jen, you sounded like you said you had a consultant or building official. Who is the gentleman that you were walking around
His
with?
name is Dan Arnold, and he is with the Department of Services for the Blind, and he works with seniors and people with blind mostly, but yeah, and we've spoken with Bob about an issue that I had when I lived on 12th Street. So anyway,
Mayor and Council, we'll follow up with her and find out about all these issues, especially if it's someone from the commission that's recommending we look at these issues. So.
Okay, we might want to look at moving. Did we move that sign from down where it used to be The one.
I called Tri. I
The
called
TriMet sign,
TriMet.
probably.
No, the one that she had down there for the yield.
Oh, blind crossing. Oh, they wouldn't listen to that. I think having just an audible signal would be so much better. They don't. I mean, my friends were out there stopping cars. They wouldn't. They whizzing around the corner. So anyway, but I guess we should move it. But
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, no more citizen comments. New business. Resolution 2014-023, transferring budget expenditure appropriations between categories for budget year 2013-14. Julie.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. So tonight we have on the agenda two budget transfers, one for our street capital fund and one for our telecommunications fund. The street capital fund, this is to cover our costs for Adams Avenue North and the TSP update. When we put the budget together last year, we thought we would have the TSP update completed before year end, and we didn't, so this is kind of a rollover from last year. And with Adams Avenue, again, when we put it together, the announcement hadn't come out about the development, and so we didn't have it in the budget yet. It was a timing issue, so this is just to put those two projects in here that the staff has been working on this year. And then under telecommunications, there's two items in here. One is our redundancy project. Again, we had it budgeted last year, was not completed, so we need to move the money over into this fiscal year. And then the other is to upgrade and replace our core equipment to support new customers that will add about $100,000 of annual revenue to our telecommunications fund. So, do you have questions?
Do I have any council questions? Call for motion.
I move we adopt Resolution 2014-023.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Julie.
Our next one is Resolution 2014-024, approving amendments to the City Council rules pertaining to agenda creation and committee appointments.
Mayor, Council, I'll start this, but you may, Chris Green may chime in because he was the last one to kind of put these together. These are proposed amendments based on the resolution that was adopted at your last meeting, asking staff to come up with some proposed language around those two issues. I don't know if we hit the nail on the head or not. It's really up to you as a council to decide whether this language is necessary or not, and that'll be the discussion tonight. I think on the agenda creation, one of the things that Mayor Middleton brought to the table when he first came onto the council, which I think was a positive, was having the council president participate in the meeting on a weekly basis with myself and the city recorder and the assistant city manager to set the agenda. And that worked very well. And I think the proposed language that's in your proposed rules really tries to get back to that. Again, it's up to you. It's your rules. You can do as you will as a council. But that's really what we were trying to get into your rules about agenda creation. The other issue is about bringing back mayoral appointments, where the mayor makes appointments to both city boards and commissions and non-city boards and commissions, bringing that back as a resolution for the council to approve it. Part of that is to create a record, a clear record, which is important in terms of some of these positions. And again, that's the language, that was the intent in drafting the language. The mayor still has the responsibility to make those appointments. It's just the consent of the council through a more formal resolution process. And we added some language that says it's both for city boards and commission and non-city boards and commissions. Your previous rules didn't really address non-city boards and commissions. So that's the background. Chris took my original language and certainly made it a little bit more clearer. It is up for discussion tonight. Do you have anything to add?
Thank you,
Mr. Gall and Mayor, members of the council. I would like to respond to the comments that were made during the public citizen comment period. The first was what happens if the new rules or the existing rules are violated. And I want to reiterate again, these are not a constitution, they're not a statute, they're not an ordinance. They're not something that the police are going to come in here and enforce. They are in the nature of a gentle person's agreement. This is how we're going to agree to behave among ourselves in the conduct of city business. And if you don't, then these are only enforceable to the extent you feel it's in the city's interest to enforce them. And I would point out that there's a number of rules in these rules that are routinely not enforced for reasons everyone agrees with. If you look at paragraph K, it says you have to have a motion, a second, and approved to adjourn. We routinely adjourn because everybody wants to go home, and that's reason enough, right? So you don't have to enforce rules when there's no need to, even if they're being violated, like the rule that says you have to have a motion to adjourn, right? So these are guidelines that you can follow, not follow, bend at your will. So if the new or the existing language is violated, you can enforce it or not. That's up to you. So that's the answer to the first question. The second question is, what happens, looking at this is the proposed new language in paragraph D2, the second sentence, an amendment to a published council meeting agenda. And we decided to leave the word published in there because, frankly, it's not really a term of art, but we all kind of know what that means. Once it's put on the city website, once it's made available to the public, that's synonymous in our mind with published. So once it's available to the public, a change to that should be made with sufficient time to allow the public notice of the change so people can stay home if their item is taken off the agenda or show up if something was put on. But what happens if that's not possible? Well, at that point, you jump down to 2A, which allows a council member to propose an amendment to the agenda by motion under approval of agenda, and you'll see that we added a category to the list of categories, approval of agenda. So if something comes up at the last minute and you want to add it to the agenda, have somebody move to add it to the agenda, get a second, have it approved. So if something comes up at the last minute, there isn't enough time to get a revised agenda out to the public, that's how it would be handled. So that's the answer to that question. And then the other is, the last set of changes that Mr. Gall referred to is changing the appointments process. It would be appointed by the mayor with consent of the council. In a nutshell, that's what those changes do. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Would it be a violation of Robert's rules to put the approval of the agenda into the consent agenda and just one thing? Or is it going to be a new vote we're going to take every single time we have a meeting? I'm fine either way. I'm just curious, really.
I'm not sure I understand. Can you?
You've added approval of the agenda after roll call. Could that go into the consent agenda?
Yes, and keep in mind, if you read the lead-in line to D1, these are the agenda headings only. Right, so this is not, there's nothing in the rules that says you have to follow this order, but these are the agenda headings. So everything's got to fit into one of these categories. Now, as a practical matter, yeah, we generally follow this order because it makes sense to do so, and it's become our practice, and it's what everybody expects. So this is what the order we would generally expect, but there's no reason it has to be that way. And the order of the agenda can be rearranged, in the meeting with the mayor and the council president and the city manager, or it can be done by the council at the meeting like we did 2 weeks ago. So does that help?
Bill? So, Joe, I guess I'm a little bit confused because right now, for example, Parks and Rec Board, they have some vacancies. And normally what happens is the chair of that committee, the staff member, which is Kristen at this point, and the liaison to the council entertain applications, and they pick and choose, and that's how they get on the Parks and Rec. So how are you saying we're proposing doing it now?
I think you're leaving out some steps. You go through that process, and then my understanding is you make a recommendation to the mayor. And the mayor decides, okay, that sounds good. I think that makes sense. I'm going to make that recommendation, and it goes on usually your agenda as a resolution. So there's an important step in terms of how we practice now. The mayor's position is not part of that selection, but he, usually takes the recommendation of the liaison and the staff person. He's not part. He or she, whoever's in the mayor's seat, isn't part of that interview process for everybody.
So then it would go to the mayor and then to council?
Well, go to us. If you go from me just down to Sylvia, who writes the resolution with your recommendations, and I don't think there's ever been a time.
I'm just
where we
trying to
haven't-
clarify it.
Yeah, that's the way it's always been, pretty much. Like on planning, I didn't get to the interviews, but Robin gave 2 people for the planning commission, and then it really just goes almost directly to Sylvia. And then we'll still vote on it as a resolution. So
Under consent.
yeah, we could do it under consent.
Okay.
Which is generally.
And I would think if there's a problem with somebody you have on there, that whoever, the mayor or council president would get a hold of you and say, hey, maybe there's an issue, but I don't see that happening. So
Okay.
that's because we don't know the people you interview.
Right.
So,
Most of the time, we don't know them either
right.
Until we
Yeah.
interview them.
Right.
until we interview them.
So I don't see much change in that, really.
Nor
it's
do
always
I.
been that way.
It's
pretty
always
much.
been that way. So,
And the only other thing I wanted to ask, Chris, is I was just talking, and on the city manager sets the agenda, it can be him or his designee, correct? We don't have to put that in writing in there, say he's gone or something like that, because that could hold up the agenda if it has to be approved by him and he's.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. I think the inference is the 3 of you have to among yourselves decide what the agenda is going to be, and if one of you can't make the meeting for whatever
Yeah,
reason, the
just
other
I'll
2
call like Linda and say, hey, I can't make it. Looks good to me.
and in the practice, and this could change down the line, but the practice is the assistant city manager is part of that meeting to set the agenda
Right.
and is part of the discussion. If I'm not there for some reason, he can step in.
Right.
Or if I'm gone out of town, he's probably going to be designated anyway to be the city manager in my absence. So it worked very well for most of this past year. And like I said, I think Mayor Middleton did bring that to the table when he first came in the office to say, look, let's have the council president be part of this because, if I can't make a meeting, that person needs to be able to step up. And when she's not part of the process, she's kind of in the dark. So
And Sylvia's involved in it.
and Sylvia's involved as well. So it worked pretty much fairly well for most of this last year.
It'll
So-
work. It'll work now. We've aired out the problems. So, go ahead.
I just had
Councilor
one
Clark.
clarification piece that I wanted in D under 2. It says the mayor in consultation, which is what you were talking about with the city council president and city manager, which I think that's a great idea. But when it comes down to approved by the mayor, council president, and city manager, why are we having our city manager approve the agenda when the agenda is here for the people? We represent the people. He is our staff. He is our support. So I don't think that it's appropriate. I think it's absolutely appropriate for him to be there for consultation. I don't think it's appropriate for him to be part of the approval process for the public body. How does the rest of council feel about
That's
that?
a good point. Does that really mean the city manager could decline
Right.
the agenda?
I don't like that.
I think that's a good point.
I don't think that was the intent, and I don't see any problem.
I agree. It's
removing
So
it.
just
I
so
agree.
I'd
It's
like-
the council's agenda.
So I
Yeah.
would just like to make the motion that under the agenda item 2, that we amend and remove the approved by mayor, council president, and city manager. We remove the piece that says and city manager and replace it with approved by the mayor and council president, period.
Not period.
Not period,
Prior-
but
Well,
prior
no,
to,
prior to, well,
yeah.
and then finish.
The rest of the sentence.
Yeah, we got
the
it.
rest of the sentence.
I'll second that motion. To amend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Any
other
more questions from council?
I'll move we approve resolution 2014-024 as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. One thing I'd too like to encourage council too is, and it would be a lot better if we do have some agenda items you want on there, try and get them in as early as we can, because we normally have 2 meetings, and sometimes if there's clarification needed, it gives Sylvia a lot of time for her to adjust to that. So
I have a
And
question.
the other thing that I would just remind you, in my weekly report to you, I always have the agenda forecast.
Right.
And that's always a good time to suggest something, I want to have a work session on this, or, I think that constant communication from the other counselors, so it's not just the mayor and the council president deciding with staff consultation what needs to be on the agenda. So reviewing that on a weekly basis, I think, is very important. And in our meetings as well.
You have our agenda forecast for many weeks out, so, and that you review with us in our meetings,
Yes.
correct? So, yeah, it's about communication. Thank
So
you.
yeah, if you feel strongly about something, then let Joe know, and he can put it on the forecast, and then staff will have time to prepare.
Yeah, I have no heartburn if you really have something pressing. You can come to our meeting. I think it's 8:30, 9:30. That's right, I had to go 9:30 to go to the gym.
Yeah, no quorum.
Yeah, we can only have one. Okay. Our next one is Resolution 2014-025, appointing primary and alternate representatives to the Washington County Coordinating Committee. City Manager.
Again, Mayor and Council, this is in response to a motion that was made a couple of weeks ago at your last meeting and I think this is a point of clarity, just again for the record. I think there's all seven. I'm assuming the mayor will continue to be the WCCC representative, and what WCCC is the Washington County Coordinating Committee, an important countywide board that is mainly mayors that sit, but all mayors can't attend all meetings, so because there are votes that take place, having an alternate and then a second alternate, which I think you wanted to do at some point, was important. So we're bringing this back at your direction just for clarity again, so we're all on the same page in terms of who is authorized to vote in your absent, Mayor Middleton. And do you want one alternate or do you want two? And let's just do this formally. So that's the intent here.
I have no problem with one or two, whatever the council wants. If you stick a third, it doesn't hurt, because they're the third down the line. We'll always know we'll have somebody there. So like when she was in surgery and I was back east, if we had that meeting, we'd have a third person, so we know we'd just go right down there. So because that's the only way they could vote.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
So just to clarify, with the documentation we already have with Washington County, the resolution, if we pass it with Mayor Middleton as the primary, Council President Henderson as the first alternate, and Councilor Clark as the second alternate, it would just be affirming per resolution what the documentation they already have. But they did specifically send an email, which you forwarded to us, requesting that we do this by resolution, so it was clear.
They want to know that the council approved of whoever's
The
representing
process.
the council.
Right.
They didn't say by resolution, but again, in terms
hurt
of clarity, it doesn't hurt to
Mm-hmm.
draft the resolution for the record.
Right.
Basically reaffirming what was done before, which is what you just said, with Council President Henderson as the first alternate and Councilor Clark as second. I think that covers all the bases, and the mayor provided an example where Councilor Henderson couldn't make it and Councilor Clark could. So it's an important board that Sherwood needs to be represented, and there are votes sometimes that we need to be there for.
And so far I only missed one meeting, and that's because I had the wrong date. Julia was there. She goes to it too, so
Yeah.
we always have somebody there. She just can't vote.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Are you making a motion, Counselor?
Oh, sure, I'd be happy to. I was going to ask, did Councilor Butterfield, did you have something? No, he's breathing.
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody gets to talk. Go ahead.
No, I second.
Oh, wait, is it the amended or?
I'm not sure. That's what I was going to ask staff. Do we need to make the motion that we fill in the blanks?
You would need to amend the resolution
Okay.
to add names.
I would move to amend the resolution to make Mayor Middleton the primary, Council President Henderson the first alternate, and Councilor Clark the second alternate.
Second.
All
You weren't seconding, I was seconding.
Just waiting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Of the amended resolution.
Of the amended resolution.
Okay.
Okay, We're on to ordinance 201.
No, now we
Now we got to open. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Vote on the amended. All right.
I move we adopt the resolution 2014-025 as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There we go. Our next one is an ordinance. It's ordinance 2014-009, approving an addition of Chapter 12.13, Rules of Conduct on City Property to Sherwood Municipal Code. City Manager.
Mayor and Council, I'm going to again introduce this topic, and both the City Attorney's Office, who was critical in putting this together, may answer some questions and fill in some blanks for you, and then also Captain Hanlon also may have some questions that he will be able to answer for you. So you may recall this, we brought this to you in a work session, actually in the regular council meeting. We brought Dave Nelson from CIS, and we made a presentation about the need for an additional tool in the rare occurrence when someone is usually in this building, but sometimes it's at the Public Works building, where they're just beyond a level of behavior and threatening and abusive to staff. And many jurisdictions, we use the Tigard as a model, but other jurisdictions have this, have that extra tool. If someone is just beyond control, that there's a code of conduct that that person, after being warned, could be excluded from the property, ranging anywhere from 24 hours up to a longer period of time. So this is a proposed ordinance to adopt some additional measures in those rare occasions that we can make those decisions. Does it happen very often? No. But it happens often enough, and we've experienced a lot of tension in the community over the last year and a half over issues. And there have been times when people have been threatening and abusive to staff. And my job is to, as the city manager, is to make sure we do not have a hostile work environment. And civility is a word that we're hearing a lot about around town, and this is an attempt to try to address that. And like I said, I hope that we would never use that, but if I had that capability in those rare occasions, it would be nice to be able to utilize it. You had mentioned when we brought this to you as an idea, the important process about appeals. So if someone feels that they were excluded from city property in a wrongful manner, either by myself as the city manager or someone that's been designated, they do have that right to appeal. They could go to the municipal court and say, I think, your city manager or whoever made the decision to exclude the person from the property because of the behavior went above and beyond what was reasonable. So there are measures in there, and Chris can talk about, how that would work and things like that. So that's kind of a reintroduction of this topic from months ago. It is an ordinance. You don't have to adopt it tonight. If you think we didn't hit the mark or we left some holes in it, we can go back and craft some additional language and bring it back to you. So, but with that, Chris, do you have anything else really to offer at this point?
I don't think so, other than I tend to agree with Joe that I'm only familiar with one instance in 7 or 8 years where we've actually had to take the step of excluding someone. It just doesn't come up that often. But I work with a lot of jurisdictions, and some of them have trouble with people in the libraries being loud and abusive and disrupting other patrons in the libraries and the staff who are trying to shelf books and do other things. We've had people get angry at planning counters at public works departments, and there needs to be a way there needs to be a way for the city to take action if it rises to a certain level. Now, that said, I recall when we first discussed this several months ago, Chief Groth was sitting here, and he said, frankly, what we do is we warn the person, cut it out, or we're going to have to get serious. And usually that works. And only if it continues, then would an exclusion order, we would go the extra step of actually issuing an exclusion order. And typically it's going to be for 30 days or something like that. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
And just for clarity, we have an existing exclusion policy for the library that already exists, because we've had situations, unfortunately, in the library that we've had to address. So.
I'm sorry, one other thing. This notion of a warning, excuse me, is actually written into this under the section 090 enforcement and exclusion. Under paragraph G, it says, before issuing an exclusion order, a police officer or authorized employee shall first give the person a warning and reasonable opportunity to desist. So that's, frankly, it's written right into the rules. We're not going to go from 0 to 60.
What does the one look like for the library?
It's an internal policy. It was never adopted as an ordinance, and it's similar in sense, but it doesn't go as far as defining an appeal process and things like that. And they haven't used it very often, but it was developed internally as a policy. And if the council wanted to see that, I can certainly bring that back to you. I told Kristen Schweitzer she didn't need to be here tonight because I didn't think she'd get a question, so she would be the one that answers that more appropriately, Mayor.
I think the library exclusion policy is a warning, and then they're excluded. And I think it's for 30 days, and then if they return within the 30 days, they can be cited for trespass. And we did use it twice, that I recall. But after that second incident in this modern era hit Facebook, we didn't seem to have any more exclusions necessary.
So, Joe, did we get this policy from a neighboring community that already has an existing exclusion policy
Yes.
in place?
Yeah, this is based largely on the City of Tigard's ordinance, which they adopted in 2008. Chris took that ordinance and tweaked it a little bit, and he can talk about what it was. Nothing that I thought was very significant. I was preparing a report for my continuing education for 2013, and I was looking at a session that I went to in Boston when I was at the ICMA conference on civility in the workplace, and this is an issue nationwide. You know, people have frustrations with government, and sometimes, you know, obviously rightfully so, but it's gone to a level now that cities around the country are developing these kind of things. Clackamas County Board of Commissioners, I think, developed something similar recently because of what was going on within their community. So we're not unusual in considering this. We're not breaking new ground or breaking new territory. There are a lot of exclusion policies. Captain Hanlon, when he was at Beaverton, he can talk about the city of Beaverton's policies. TriMet's got a policy. They don't get used very often, but when it's necessary, it's nice to have that extra tool, and that's what Chief Groth said when we brought this to you at the work session. I look at it from a safety standpoint for my employees. And it's been a tough year for some of my employees who have felt the wrath and the frustration from some of the frustrated residents here. And I understand their frustration, but it's gone beyond that level. And I am not one that believes that just because you're a public employee, you can get yelled at and abused verbally because of some issue. That's not the way we operate here. That's not the environment we want to work in, and that's really what this is trying to address. Does that answer your question, Councilor?
Yes.
The only thing I have on this policy, I see a lot of duplications that we already have laws on the books. So we're adding stuff like, you know, like littering, that's already in the codes. Fraud, I mean, and deception, that's a different law. I'd like to see it trimmed down a bit and look for the duplications and remove those and make it a more streamlined policy, because something easier to enforce if it's a lot smaller, but it meets your needs, rather than, because it's what we've done is we're going to have two laws on the books for the same thing, and I'd just rather see those removed and mainly dealing with the conduct that in the city, that in the city hall and those areas, in the parks and all that, because we already have there was a couple other ones back here that are already on our books, so we don't need to duplicate them. And they're already covered. But I believe, are they infractions or misdemeanors on some of these, like, well, littering's a
violations.
fine.
Violations.
Right. But I mean, that's all I'd like to see is make it a more streamlined policy. That's just me.
Excuse me. Chris, is there a reason why under 1213.090 you listed those chapters, which is page 4 and 5?
I think the primary reason is to put people on notice that those activities, too, may also be considered grounds for exclusion. But beyond sort of the public notice element, it says those activities that fall within any of those categories can be enforced by a police officer, which the mayor is correct, that's existing law, or authorized employee. So if any of this is going on in Public Works, Craig Sheldon can kick him out. So it does extend the person's authorized to enforce violations of those, as well as puts the reader on notice. If I'm looking through the Code of Conduct section of the city municipal code, it'll be clear to me what activities would be considered, could be considered violating the Code of Conduct. But the mayor is absolutely right to the extent that those are already prohibited, and if Craig picked up the phone and called Captain Hanlon, they could have the person excluded. But this does extend that authority to the authorized person as well, department heads typically.
I'd rather have our police enforcing that, have the department head call and have it done. But that's, just, it does give them the authorization, but they've got to be very careful. But I just don't know. I think it's a lot of duplication. If we made it a smaller policy, people would understand it better. I understand what you're talking about on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The other thing is that, and it just, by bringing these under the umbrella of the Code of Conduct, it doesn't require you to issue a citation for a violation, right? You can just exclude the person for these activities listed in, well, offenses against state and public justice, fraud, deception, offenses against public health, controlled substances. You can issue an exclusion order now because those are in this chapter, rather than just simply calling a police officer whose only tool is going to be issuing a violation, a citation.
Well, I'd rather they do that on paraphernalia, controlled substances, things like that.
But
just the major ones I'd like to see removed.
Point of order, do we have to open public hearing on this? Is that the next step? What's the next step on this?
We don't have to. It's not required.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we can just move to recapture the document and move ahead.
I have a question.
I can tell.
I know. I'm looking at this and I'm like, page 74, under prohibited acts generally. It says, declared to be an offense against the public peace, safety, health, morals. I think that's pretty subjective. The other one, general welfare. Okay, the other ones I'm going for, more 74A.
Oh, I'm sorry.
74. Page 74.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, right under the prohibited acts generally A. The other ones are pretty standard statements of something. Morals, I think, is pretty subjective as far as a statement. My morals might be quite a bit different than yours or hers or his or.
Isn't that what brings in the foul language?
Is that? I mean, that's why I'm asking because I don't understand.
And I'm looking at Chris, and I mean that's language directly from Tigard. So
I don't think the word morals is any more subjective than general welfare or public peace, but it is a lightning rod more than those other terms.
Sure.
And there's nothing in this or elsewhere that prohibits somebody from using foul language, but just doing it at the top of your voice or doing it in a way that puts somebody in genuine fear of their personal safety, right? So it's not the content, it's the way that it's the manner of expression that would bring somebody within the Code of Conduct. But morals, you can take the word morals out without diminishing the importance of that clause.
I just think morals is a weird word to be in there.
Yeah,
it's just weird.
I tend to
The other
agree.
ones don't.
Yeah. And what this does is it's a clear statement that what the city is doing is exercising its police power.
Right. Peace, safety, health.
Exactly.
Those all seem to mesh. You hit morals and you kind of go, morals.
Whose morals?
Right.
Yeah.
Whose morals are you talking about?
Yep.
So okay. So I move that we remove morals from page 74, 1213, 040A. Does anyone?
Councilor Butterfield.
Well, I like what the mayor has to say, and I think you need to take it back, look at it again.
Okay.
Make the adjustments that Christina is talking about, and then re-present it to us.
Have everybody from council do that. If they have stuff they don't like, if you could line it out or give a recommendation, and then we can bring it back.
That would be great.
The policy itself's good. It's just, to me, I don't want a park guy saying, or Craig saying, well, you're using drugs down here, I'm going to exclude you. I want the police to come down and arrest the guy. You know what I mean? So.
And Mayor and Council, there's no pride of authorship here because we took this from the city of Tigard.
Right,
So
right.
if it doesn't
Good
fit,
discussion.
Okay.
So.
you know, if it doesn't fit, let's make it fit for Sherwood.
All right.
So,
Then let's make sure I understand Councilor Clark's question and my follow-up question on that. So if someone is at the desk upstairs and their language gets coarse in a way that is offensive yet not loud, do we need morals in there in order to stop that, or does that member of staff have to put up with that upstairs? Does morals do that, or do we already have?
So the way that I drafted this, because this does have, substantial freedom of expression concerns, and the city does not have a legitimate governmental interest in regulating speech, as we've heard before.
I've heard that somewhere.
But the city does have a legitimate public interest in protecting public health and safety and ensuring the efficient operation of governmental services. We are all here to provide services to the citizens, and disruptive behavior cannot be allowed to interfere with the provision of services. And so I tried to the recitals in the resolution itself try to hit both of those points. So back to your example, if a person upstairs at the front desk starts engaging in language that puts the person at genuine risk or genuine fear of personal safety, then the person can be removed, because we have an obligation to protect public health and safety, and certainly to protect the health and safety of our employees. If it, secondly, interferes with the efficient operation of government services, we can also act to remove that problem, and we have done that before. I am familiar with examples of us having done that. So the behavior would have to sort of trip one of those thresholds. It's not enough to use bad language.
Right,
You
because
have
if they have salty language,
Okay.
but they're saying it very calmly, and then so what he said is step one is,
Okay.
could you please,
Got it.
and then they say, oh, okay, I didn't even know I was
Okay.
doing it.
Yeah, there's an item under, or a line under, on page 4. It says, engage in conduct that subjects or may subject customers or employees of the city government to annoyance or alarm, including but not limited to conduct that involves the use of abusive or threatening language or gestures.
Okay. All right.
So I'd like to ask a question. So Councilor Butterfield, one time after Cannery Square was open, where we have no skateboarding signs posted, there were some kids over there, and he went over and spoke to them, and they responded in a very abusive and threatening language with gestures. So in that case, they, potentially, obviously he could have called the police, but by the time the police got there, those kids are going to be gone. But that certainly has happened long before we even had a policy. And I have asked kids not to skateboard on picnic tables at Snyder Park and had a similar reception, even though I think that it was toned down a bit because there were other small kids around. So while this is a definite concern for us at City Hall and our Public Works, trust me, I've been in talking to the water department when people are there very unhappy with the portion of their bill that could be water or could be clean water services. So, in that situation, calling a police officer doesn't seem like a very practical thing to do because those kids are going to be gone. But I think it's important to leave something like that, whether or not we leave the word morals in there or not. It's threatening, it's abusive language. So I'm fine with that.
But I don't think we're actually and would be the ones to bring this to the person to exclude them. This is only the city manager.
Yes.
So, right.
Yeah.
You had that
And
when you were-
department heads.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably authorize Craig Sheldon if we had this policy or this ordinance to handle the situation in his building.
He's already listed.
You know,
I agree
So-
with Mayor Middleton and Councilor Grant that we just need to have it reworked and then re-present it to us.
And then when we bring it back, we can go ahead and have we can have the public comment. And it's online too, isn't it? So they could just, if they have any questions, they want to shoot us about it, we can deal with that too.
And could I ask that everybody follow up on the mayor's suggestion to go ahead and mark this up? I mean, the mayor said, let's just get the big ones, and I'm not sure that we have the same definition of what
Okay.
that would be. So if people would mark this up, then I'm just not, we're not, I mean, Joe and I aren't just shooting in the dark.
Hey, Chris, real quick question. Sorry, over here. I just want to clarify that if we remove duplication of our state and city laws, our ordinances, and let's say law enforcement has to respond, do we take the tool away from, let's say somebody's out here on city property smoking marijuana. We come out and we enforce that on the criminal side. If we don't have
No, you're enforcing a different law at that point.
Correct, but
Right.
if you take everything out of here that refers to those statutes and those violations off this, are we not able to then exclude them? Because in my opinion, I think if we find somebody who's committing a crime on city property, we would like to have the option to exclude them for 30, 60, 90 days. But if we remove that, and I need clarification on that,
Yeah.
if we remove that out of there on the law enforcement piece, are we not going to be able to do that?
The short answer is I don't know. It will come down to the language of the penalty section in those chapters of the municipal code, what penalties are authorized. But that said, I would be surprised if exclusion is one of them. I suspect that
Me too.
It's a fine. It's a fine. And probably an escalating series of fines depending on the number of violations and so on. So I'll have to look at that. But my guess is because it's categorized as a violation, it's just a fine. And unless the city has a policy like exists for the library, there's no other authority to exclude someone.
Yeah, and I guess that's where
That's your concern.
That's my
Right.
concern. We're up at Snyder
Right.
Park, big
Right.
MIP. We're issuing citations for MIPs. We want to send the message as well that we don't necessarily
Right.
want you back here for 30 or 60, 90 days. But if you take all of that out of there, we're not going to have that tool to do that, if I understand it.
That's correct. Could I ask you to mark this up as well and give your changes to the city manager? We'll make sure to address those in the next iteration of this.
Didn't Portland have problems in court with their exclusion policy?
They did, and it several times because of the length of the exclusions and because of the appeal process. They had due process challenges brought to it, but over time, those, with the assistance of the courts, if you will, they were able to identify the shortcomings in their ordinance and make the necessary adjustments, and they do now have an exclusion ordinance, so it's very much like this one.
Could we let the judge have the authority to exclude? Is that possible? So when they come in,
Ultimately, the judge does have the authority if the person disagrees with the initial exclusion and appeals it. The judge can overrule the city and say, no, we're not going to, or can shorten the exclusion period, or, ultimately, if the person disagrees, it would be up to the judge to make the final call.
could the judge just issue an exclusion ordinance? No, he cannot exclude people.
No. Enforcement is different branch government.
Yeah, but I'm saying the enforcement part, but can he make that a condition of the citation?
Mayor, are you asking MIP,
Yeah,
he comes in, and somebody comes in front of the judge, and that just says, in part of your sentencing, you can't go to...
Right, that's what I was wondering.
Arcade.
Because they do that on certain things. It's much like your driver's license. I mean, they do things like that. And it's just rather have him the authority than... Because they'll start... If you do an MIP, I guarantee you're going to have come in here and start the appeals process and take staff time. And it would just be easier if he just says you're out of the park for 30 days, if he could do it. And we
Not-
could work with him.
Not all violations come before our judge.
Most don't.
No, most
Yeah.
the ones that I was saying that were listed in here, the drug cases and all that, that's the ones.
Yeah, it's speculative to guess how people might respond if they were excluded versus given a fine. Do people object more to an actual fine, especially if it's going to come out of their parents' paycheck rather than 17-year-olds versus an exclusion order. I just don't know how, that's going to play itself out on a case-by-case basis, I guess.
But I think we can look into that, Mayor.
Okay,
I mean, you
yeah,
raised
we'll get the recommendations from the police department, obviously, and, I'll leave them in if you want. To me, they just seem like something I'd rather have the police for sure deal with, but if we can give them both, that's not a problem either.
I have just one more comment.
Go ahead, Rob.
Just wanted to it's okay.
Sorry, Council President.
I knew what you meant. I just wanted to let the council know that the penalty is listed as a Class B. Julie, do Class Bs come before municipal court?
Yes,
Okay.
they all do.
So a Class B, which is under Section 9.16, is a penalty with a fine of up to $500. So an A is 1,000, a B is 500, a C is 250, and a D is 100. And I just wanted to, because I don't have those. I have them memorized now, but I didn't before I asked Officer Collins to explain it to me. And I just wanted that, obviously that's up to $500, or the court has obviously latitude.
Right, and the court does have discretion to waive fines and routinely reduces fines.
Right, okay.
Okay, we all good with taking this home, reviewing it, and bringing it back?
So I'm going to...
With changes.
With the changes, I'm going to shoot for your first meeting in May is very busy, and you're probably not going to have a second meeting in May because of budget. So this will probably come back to your first meeting in June.
Okay, that gives you guys plenty of time to get us something, because we're going to be dependent on you guys more than me for looking at this, obviously. So, okay.
Thank you.
On to council announcements. Okay, we'll start with you tonight.
So the first thing that I would like to do is I would like to give my condolences to the Ross family. Carolyn Ross passed away actually at the same time as our last council meeting on April 1st. And she was a past Rotary president and just really a wonderful member of our community. And she will be missed very much. And so I just wanted to offer my condolences that I had the pleasure of working with her at the last Faith in Action. And it was wonderful. I didn't actually know her before that. And so I'm very glad that I got to meet her and get to know her. And she was just a great part of our community. And I have heard nothing but wonderful, glowing praise for her volunteerism. So I just wanted to offer that up to her family. On that note, the next Faith in Action Good Samaritan Saturday is May 3rd. So if you would like to join that, Mark Federspiel is in charge of that through Providence. It's a great program that helps keep the elderly who want to live in their own home in their home. You just sign up. You can join a team, but you don't have to. You can just sign up at the senior center and just join a team. And it starts at 8 a.m. They give you a great breakfast. It's awesome. My kids love it. We've done it since they were super little, and Declan would just pick up little sticks sometimes, and Dell would always get the job of pruning the trees, and it's really, really a wonderful program for these seniors that want to stay in their home but aren't able to do all of the massive yard work. And I know after when spring comes, this is the perfect time to be thinking about as you're doing your own yard, going, wow, this is such a huge job. Well, imagine if you were elderly and you had to take care of your own yard and didn't have assistance. And they're super appreciative of any help that they get, and it feels great, and it's a great program. So I highly recommend you joining in on that. So that is May 3rd, 8 to noon. The Arbor Day event was great. I wanted to thank PAC 844. And can you remind me of our sponsor again? They were awesome. It's an acronym, and I always forget.
AKS Engineering.
AKS. I always forget the acronym. But they brought out the trees and taught everybody how to plant them. And it was hilarious because they did not disappoint us with the slope. It was quite steep. In fact, our staff member said that he thought it was probably 50%. It was like, woo, all right, careening down. And so the boys thought that was hilarious anyway, as they were tromping down, and every time that you dug a hole, a dirt clod would roll down to your neighbor buddy down below. It was a great fun, and the rain held out pretty well too. So great job for the city for getting involved in that, and it made you really think about spring and renewal. I wanted to talk about a program that I got to attend at the Tualatin High School, which was on marijuana and our youth. It was a great program, and I learned a lot. They had some wonderful speakers there that I took some copious notes, but the thing that I came away with the most was that they have started a program, and it's called Tualatin Together, and they mentored it after a program. It's a coalition, is what they call it, and they've mentored it after a program called Tigard Turns the Tide. So I was able to talk to Mayor Lou Ogden about this program a little bit and kind of dig into it, because it seemed very organized, and I was like, how did you get this program so organized, in such a fashion to where you have your schools bought in and your city bought in and your community is bought into this, and the students are getting the education that they need to make those good choices. Because the statistics, and I won't go through the statistics, but they're terrible. One of the speakers on it was Dr. Liz Dahl, and she said that adolescent cannabis. That would be bad. We'd need a committee on that. Cannabis users lost 8 IQ points from the age of 18 to 38 years old. So if they used marijuana in their adolescence, they lost those cognitive points, and that's something that they cannot get back. If they use it, it's gone. And so unlike, if you are a smoker, which is a bad idea, if you stop, your lungs will regenerate themselves to a certain point. That doesn't happen here. Your brain will not regenerate itself. You lose those IQ points forever. So you have a slower physical reaction time. You have self-reported cognitive problems, and they had also relationship problems that the users, they were saying that yes, we were having relationship problems caused by the marijuana use. So I think that after talking with Mayor Ogden and asking him all these questions, he said the way that we did it was we mentored on the Tigard program. The Tigard program was started and the coalition was started, and so we took and mentored from them. And so I said, okay, so how did you fund it? Well, because we used that and because we got the buy-in, there's federal grant money out there for these programs. And I said, oh, well, could Sherwood mentor onto Tigard? And he said, absolutely. So I brought the information with me if you'd like to look at it. But I think that this is something that we, as a society and as a council and as a city, should act on quicker rather than slower. And so with the support of council, I'd like to make a motion that we direct staff to write a resolution to start a coalition mentoring program, mentoring off of the Tigard program, Tigard Turns the Tide, and go after that federal money and look into the opportunity of that. Because when I took this to the chamber the next day and talked with Michelle DeBorg from the school, she immediately jumped on. YMCA director said, yes, we're interested in this. So I think that there is definitely the interest in our community, but I think that we need, as a council, to have a place where we start. Because I don't think that...
Well, we actually started this about 2 years ago. And so we've got something called the Youth Substance Abuse Task Force that the chief of police started. It involves the police, the school district, Washington County Juvenile Department, the city, YMCA, and the staff at the schools and the Juvenile Department of Washington County have actually done the majority of the heavy lifting already, and they've been modeling it after Tigard's Turn the Tide. And so they've probably got 18 months, 24 months of work on this.
And
already.
do they have they gone after the federal funding?
That's part of the process. There's a team of about 25 people involved that are working on all this. Yeah.
So could the city get involved in that? So the police is involved in it.
Yeah.
But the city is a body. I mean, the police are involved, but that's the piece. But can we as a city, is that not something that
We already are.
I thought that that's what we were already doing. I remember Matt, Counselor Langer, reporting on that with the chief, probably last
What
year.
I would suggest, Councilor Clark, is that when Chief Growth gets back, he can give an update on YSAT and where the coalition fits in, because when I first heard about this, when I was getting involved with YSAT, I got very energized as well in terms of why aren't we doing what Tigard's done? Because they've had tremendous success.
Right.
And the folks at the table have said that's where you want to get to. But you can't get there instantly. You got to build the coalition.
Yeah,
And-
last summer when we were working on it, we were trying to launch the whole program, including the coalition, this last fall before the school year. But the principals of the school, mainly the staff working with the county, just couldn't get all the framework done. They got most of it done late fall, and so there's been several months of time where they're finalizing the framework and the systems, and we have to get back on track as far as when they're going to launch it. But there was so much work to do that the next time they'd be able to launch it would probably be this next coming school year, which would be September 2014. But there was just a tremendous amount of work to go on. So when the chief gets back, we can circle back, and we were meeting a couple times a month there for a year, and so and I know the county had been involved working with several representatives from Tigard's coalitions for months. So yeah, there's a lot of progress done. I suspect it's something that's be ready for this fall, because by then we'll have 2.5 years of work into it. So,
And part of that may be an application process to the federal government. But I think it would be the school district that would take the lead potentially on that. I think that's what happened in Tigard. I don't think it was the city of Tigard.
Well, at Tualatin, it was the city.
Okay.
According to Lou.
Yeah, I think we'll bring an update, because this, what you're suggesting, and I understand your excitement about it, because I felt the same way. I'm like, how do we do this here in our town? And everyone kind of slowed me down a little bit and said, you need to do this right. But modeling after the success of Tigard is definitely the way to go. I mean, they are a national model, and there's buy-in in that high school. And some, it's an amazing program, and I think we can learn from that. And that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah.
Some energy being exposed to it probably for the first time.
yeah, that's what everybody saw in the Tigard program. One of the biggest components they were trying to build into it is that right now, if the kids get caught there's two main components. They get caught in school with drugs, and then they get expelled, and then everybody involved said that probably doesn't help the child get off drugs. So we need to build this youth substance abuse task force that has a different avenue for the student to take, where they stay within the school system and have some different monitoring requirements. That's where a lot of the work is how do you keep them in the system with the right monitoring, and how do you pay for the staff to take care of the monitoring. So we're taking care of that component. And the real big fundamental one that kicked this thing off was that if the police caught a child, say, using drugs off campus, they could not tell the school, and vice versa. If the school catches a child on campus with drugs, they can't tell the police. So there's a legal boundary there for communication. And so in this whole system, there was a lot of lawyer time spent also in figuring out how do the management agreements between the entities work so that we can cross communicate and share information, share data. And it's a global system rather than either the school's discipline system or the police's discipline system, and neither one of them were helping the youth adequately. So that's really the two main goals that we've been trying to achieve the last couple of years. So it sounds like it's pretty much the wheels are all up on it, and it's in the hands of mainly the county and the school staff.
But I think it's time for an update, and directly from the chief and some other members of the committee. And what's the next step to get to a coalition? Because I share that
that's
same
my big concern
enthusiasm.
is that I remember hearing about it 2 years ago, but and it sounds like work has been done, but I can't.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm wondering maybe, and this is maybe a question for Chief, and so maybe we'll table this until we can talk to the Chief about it, but would it be helpful to have a resolution that says, as a council, we support this. We support working towards a coalition, getting the federal funding, moving towards a coalition formed in the city of Sherwood.
Sure.
And I think that that I will hold that for the chief.
I think it needs to be a work session because it's going to take more time if we get
Yes.
everybody
Yeah.
around the table. And,
Yes.
yeah, it'd be open to the public too. I think we could advertise it and bring everybody in to see where we're at.
It's an enormous topic. And we thought
Yeah.
we could launch it last fall, and it was not a chance.
And with what's going on in our state currently and potentially in the fall, marijuana use, I mean, the world's changing. So we got a problem in the community now. And
Right.
it's probably only going to get worse if
So
we don't do anything.
that's
So-
great that we're talking about it, and I think that it absolutely cannot hurt to get an update and see if we can get that federal funding and move forward.
So we'll get that scheduled, Mayor.
Okay.
Awesome. So Sherwood Main Street, I just wanted to point out they did an awesome job on a program that gives all of the it gives the mapping for Old Town and then lists all of the businesses. So they could use funding for this. They are self-funded organization, and so if you would like to make a donation so that these maps can go out, please contact the Sherwood Main Street organization. They're sponsoring a walking tour on 424, where the Red Hat ladies are coming in from McMinnville, I think that's correct. And they're going to tour all over Sherwood downtown area. And they're also, and they also talked about Friday Night Lights. They're going to have a program that started at Cannery Row. They're going to have a Friday Night Lights where they're going to get together as a group and all go to the football game and have a group that comes back to the Old Town area. So I thought that was a very cool idea by the Cannery Row apartment area. I went to the second wastewater committee for the League of Oregon Cities. It's a huge amount of information, and so I made a folder that if anybody would like, I set it on the back there that they can peruse it. But I also asked City Manager to put a link to the League of Oregon Cities so that anybody could pull up the information, and I think he got that done. So awesome. So if anybody would like to take a look at that, it's some great information. I think that's it. Thank you.
Councilor Langer.
Sure, I've got to read some of my liaison updates off my phone here. So, Chamber of Commerce, a reminder, State Representative John Davis is hosting a complimentary legislative update for community members interested in attending next Tuesday, April 22nd at 7:30 a.m. at the Sherwood Police Station. Les Schwab Tire Center's Cruisin' Sherwood Car Show was set for June 14th, 2014 in Old Town Sherwood. Currently, you can go on to www.sherwoodchamber.org and make your nominations for the Best in Sherwood Awards. And exciting news for Sweet Story. They did achieve their goals that many of us are aware of and are moving to their new location about a block away from their current location. And also lots more of excitement in downtown Sherwood with the announcement of 503 Uncorked, which is a new wine bar that plans to open in Sherwood. At the YMCA, they've got a breakfast with the bunny on Saturday, April 19th. And they've got the National Initiative of Healthy Kids Day on Saturday, April 26th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Survey results are in for membership, staff, and program satisfaction. Results will be shared soon. The Y will be closed on Easter Sunday, as many of you will probably be off doing a lot of family things anyhow. National Senior Health Day is May 28th, and that about wraps it up for the YMCA. I've got a couple things from last week. First of all, I think one of the citizens who testified last week deserves an apology from our mayor, and that would be Terry Emmons. When she came up to testify, the mayor repeatedly asked her if she was a citizen of the city of Sherwood, and I look at the form and nowhere on here does ask if you're a citizen. You just have to state your name, and then we modified the requirements this last year that you don't have to say your address anymore. So anyhow, I think in the minutes, when Terry Emmons came up to speak, she was repeatedly asked if she was a citizen. She gave her zip code, and I'm afraid that sort of treatment of citizens is intimidating and decreases the amount of public involvement that we get at these meetings. And so I'd just like to acknowledge that and apologize. And I think it's no secret that Terry is the wife of the board chair of the YMCA. And I don't think there's any secret of why she was targeted in the fashion that she was. So anyhow, if no other apologies are going to be extended, you've got my apology, Terry. So thank you. Let's see. In the April Gazette, the mayor led by example, saying that Sherwood needs to focus on doing the best for most and quit trying to divide the city. And I've sat here quietly and listened to, taken a lot of attacks and had a lot of stones thrown at me this year. But when they start getting thrown at me from up here, I think that's just about enough. And our citizens need to know that everybody isn't going to sit quietly and put up with that sort of behavior. But the stone that was thrown at me from the mayor at the last meeting went like this, according to the minutes. He believes what has divided the city was Walmart issue, and believes the biggest problem with that is we have people on here that are still pushing that agenda, and they need to move forward and take care of the people of Sherwood, not their own personal money-making agendas. There's no secret that that was clearly targeted directly at me, and that was a purely unprofessional, cheap shot with no good intent to serve our people. And I just want many of our constituents to know that that sort of behavior is not accepted or condoned and isn't going to go silently anymore. And then at another point here in the council announcements, Councillor Clark went on to say she believes Councillor Langer did this in the last article when he brought her name up in an article about something the mayor had brought up, and she had never sent an email about or never had a discussion with him about, and said she is not sure why her name appeared. She said Councillor Langer continued to state she had an agenda and asked how he would know what kind of agenda she has and what that might be. She said the only agenda she has is serving the citizens of Sherwood, and the rest of council did not agree with that. Well, during that article in Oregon Live followed shortly after the chamber liaison situation, of which never got discussed openly up here, and I kept most of the fine details of what had gone on quiet so as not to spread more drama, because that's not in my nature, and it's very difficult for me to do. But at this point, when my credibility becomes attacked, and in fact, if you look at the Oregon Live article, my wording is very, very ambiguous in general, and there's nothing short of beating around the bush. But I'll give you an example of why I said creating awkward situations and doing stuff that just doesn't make sense. And so here's a message sent from the, at the time, council liaison to the chamber. This message goes to the chamber from Councillor Clark. Please notify me of when your photographer for board members is available, and I'll make it a priority to have my photograph taken. When my photo is posted on your website, I'll be pleased to join your board in their regularly scheduled meetings as my schedule allows. Well, as you can imagine, that sort of thing didn't go over real well, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. But there was a lot of other stuff going on, and that's exactly what I said to the Oregonian stuff, and I just leave it at that. And I think that sort of stuff just needs to stop and not go on anymore. But anyhow, for all the constituents and the people that are afraid to come to the meetings for the berating and whatnot that goes on here, I just want you to know that you're not alone, and there are some of us here that will stand and defend you, and I apologize to the Emmons family for the treatment they've had to succumb to last summer when Mr. Emmons was berated, and again last last meeting when Mrs. Emmons was berated. So if you have any other questions about specific details, there's plenty of them. I'm more than happy to share them with you. But I won't sit here in silence anymore and let the hypocrisy flow over this dais.
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
Councilor Grant?
I would only say that I was also embarrassed for Terry Emmons and feel that the badgering was unnecessary. We oftentimes have people speak and they don't live in the city of Sherwood, and it doesn't have to be a negative big thing made out of it. It was embarrassing. I know it was very uncomfortable, and I have to wonder if people seeing that on TV or here are all that excited about coming up with that risk of that happening to them. Having said that, I have nothing else.
Councilor Butterfield?
Last week, we met as a Park and Rec board. We toured several sites trying to find the best location for a dog park. They pretty much unanimously came up with the decision to submit Snyder Park as the place for the city to take a look at. So the city's working diligently to look at the feasibility of having a dog park up in that area. Also, I met with the school district as the liaison and updated them on the lighting project at Edie Ridge and the middle school. And from that, we had a couple of side conversations about exactly how long it was going to take, when it was going to be done, is it going to be ready for football season? And the city's working diligently to make sure that those kinds of things happen.
Which one's going first? Do we know?
It's all going at the same time.
Oh.
So in a week, we'll turn it all around, have it up and lit up.
Wow.
That's the plan.
In a week? So like in 2 weeks from now, we'll have lights down?
No, it'll take a week to do the installation, but we're still, a couple of months out from actually issuing an RFP, right, Tom?
Well, it's actually going through the planning commission process,
Okay.
so that's really the.
Traditional use?
That's it.
Thank you.
Councilor Folsom?
I asked Julia to help me with this before. I have to echo our citizen comment from Mrs. Broadhurst about the Planning Commission work session. It was fabulous, and I did hear that it was the second one, and you attended the first. And I think Julia said that there was a lot more people, a lot more energy. It was a great piece to understanding the planning process. And since I'm a newbie as the Planning Commission sort of co-liaison with the mayor, I really appreciated the individual conversations and the access to staff, and also the access to the citizens and their various varied concerns. It was really great. But I did have something for council. And did you want to say anything, Julia, about that Planning Commission work session first?
Only if you want me to. I certainly can expand upon that significantly, but I don't need to. It's you've got a lot to say, too.
Okay. Well, I first of all have to thank all the planning commissioners, and help me, I didn't write the name down. One of Michael Carey. Michael Carey is leaving the Planning Commission. He has moved on to other things. His term expired, and so we want to publicly thank him for his service. And as the new liaison, I actually think I only met him in passing at a joint work session. But being a planning commissioner is not for the faint of heart. It is a lot of reading, several hundred pages often at a time. So their chair is quite adept, and she's pretty amazing at what she carries around. Joe, I wanted to ask you, did I see, and I was trying to pull it up on our my email, but did I see on the forecast that we do have a work session planned about planning in the near future? Is that correct?
About planning?
Yeah, about with the joint work session with Planning Commissioner. No? No, okay.
Not in the near future.
Okay, so maybe what I would just ask is, they did talk that night about asking council to sort of prioritize what our biggest concerns were. They believe that there may be, and this is where you can probably help me, Julia, a lull in their planning process as the projects move on to the actual development stage. So they wanted
tackle and finish up some of the code cleanup, and it would be beneficial to them to hear what the council priorities are. So we probably need to have that discussion at some point. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is in the context of one of the topics at the public work session was the code cleanup, and if you recall, we've been working on that for a couple of years now. We got planning commission input, council input, public input, prioritized based on timing, and developed a work plan to get through that. And then we got quite a bit through, I think, 3 of 4 phases of that project. And then things started to increase. We had a decrease in staff. We had an increase in workload. And so the code cleanup kind of got pushed to the side. So we are hoping to start that again. And as part of that, we want to kind of see what the top priorities are for the council and the community, kind of what we want to work on most and first.
Okay, so I'm just requesting that you let us know how we give you that information. Really quickly, I am very proud to say that the Sherwood High School, who has achieved a lot of great things this year, we have great administrators in our district and great administrators directly at the high school. We have many great products of the Sherwood School District, one sitting in the audience. She will graduate next month with her MD, PhD, and that is a great, proud moment for the Sherwood School District. And if I could say what your PhD was in, I would, but I probably can't. Parasitology or something, parasitology and immunology. Yeah, see, it was hard. But the Sherwood High School continues to expand their offerings for students, and doing such this year, starting next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, April 24th, 25th, 26th, and May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, they will be holding their second only musical in 19 years. This is the first musical in memory where they are having a live orchestra, and they are having performing Fiddler on the Roof with a cast of 50 and a live orchestra of 16 students, 2 professional musicians, and a professional orchestra director. And it is a wonderful show and a great opportunity to learn about culture and history outside of our own. So I'm very proud of the high school and the district for taking the step to try to rebuild that tradition that had been lost for so long, nearly 2 decades. That's it.
Council President Henderson.
I have a lot of announcements, but I'm going to trim it down. When the mayor was visiting family outside of the state, I attended a couple of meetings. One of them was the WCCC, and the other one is the West Side Corridor Study meeting. And additional information on the West Side Corridor Study can be found at Metro's website. And probably the most important topic for Sherwood potentially is the impact that the study plan could have because of the vote in Tigard. Tigard basically amended their charter to disallow mass transit, high-capacity transit through Tigard without a public vote. And so they're in the process of trying to understand what that vote actually means. I think there's a portion of the Tigard community that it feels very passionate about not having high-capacity transit, and then there's a portion of the community who just wanted to be asked. And I think that is something that they're going to, from a public relations standpoint, try to figure out how to rectify. I don't think it's going to be coming to Sherwood, but it can definitely affect Tigard's ability to continue participating in the Southwest Corridor Study. And the WCCC, we talked about a number of things. One of the things that has been of great service and improvement to us is the ITS program, which is an Intelligent Transportation Signal Management Program, which for us begins at on 12th Sherwood Road and currently is live from Teton to I-5. And so as traffic increases or decreases, they're able to monitor the traffic signals to keep traffic moving. And someday they'd like to bring that all the way from Teton, all the way to 99. That, of course, requires quite a bit of funding. But it's resulted in an 18% increase in traffic movement, which anything double-digit in my books, as far as Tualatin Sherwood Road goes, is an improvement for me. The other topic we talked about, there's I don't know if it's a nonprofit. It's a organization called T4 America, and it stands for transportation. And this is a national organization that's basically trying to consolidate throughout the nation to try to convince the federal government to take those transportation dollars and give them locally and let local jurisdictions do what they do best, which is plan transportation improvements for their own area. And it is a coalition that they're asking the WCCC to join, and that is something that they're looking into, and Mayor Middleton will probably be voting on that in the future. And what they're looking to do is join as a group, all the cities together, basically to have more negotiating power, I guess. And the reason that is really important is the Highway Trust Fund, which is the federal money that has probably done a large majority on projects in Sherwood as well across the nation, is forecasted to be broke by August of 2014. And I think we can all agree that we have transportation infrastructure issues throughout the country, no matter where you live. What else do I have? We will be hosting the Community Development Block Grant Program meeting next month in this room on May 8th. For those of you who don't understand, the Community Development Block Grant Program is a federally funded program that is sort of administered by Washington County, and we have received a number of grants, about $2.5 million worth of grants since its inception here in Sherwood, and that money has contributed to significant improvements at our senior center. And so that is a board that we get to serve on, and so we're going to be hosting next month, give folks an opportunity to come in and maybe learn a little bit more about that, and they, of course, rotate that meeting. And then on May 3rd, we will be doing a special event. It's actually not a city event, but we're coordinating and assisting like we do for all events. There will be a event at Veterans Park on May 3rd. It's a Saturday at 2 o'clock. They're group of longtime citizens and family members of a former police chief, Stan Stanislawski. Try saying that 10 times quickly. And he was our police chief from 1965 to 1981, when we were kind of a one policeman town. And he passed away some years ago, but his 3 sons, Bob, Calvin, and Scott, have wanted to do something for a long time. And so with Tess's help, the family is putting a bench with a plaque to sort of commemorate his service over in Veterans Park, which is, of course, where the police station used to be. And that'll be at 2 o'clock. And it's time to be a part of the month of May, or the second week in May is National Police Recognition Week. And one of the sons is going to be out of the country, so we had to move it up a little bit. But we're hoping to develop a policy. The Tess and the Stanislawski family did go to the Parks Board and requested permission and a guidance, and the Parks Board agreed, but thought that it would be good for the future to have a formal policy that they can draft for placement of such items throughout the city in parks or trails in the future, so that we have a clear process. Because right now we had a policy that was written in the 90s that I had never seen when I went to the Parks Board. So thank you, Councilor Butterfield, for entertaining that request, and the Parks Board for approving it. And then the last thing I have is Pam North, who is our library manager, will be retiring in June. And I told her she ruined my year the other day. But she has been with us, somebody tell me, 15, 17, thank you, 17 years. And as the mayor put in his column, we have the most amazing library and library staff. Many of them have master's degrees and work in library science because it's their passion. And Pam is no different than that. And I personally will miss her greatly. I've known her for a very long time, and it will be very difficult to adjust without having Pam here. But I'm grateful to know her and grateful for her service to the city. And she won't be leaving libraries. She'll just be not necessarily coming to Sherwood. So I wish her, I'm hoping that she'll allow us to have a little reception or appreciation event for her, but apparently that is something I'm going to have to negotiate. So, thank you.
A little bit of trivia. She was a victim of a strong-arm robbery in Albertsons many years ago also. So she fought back, but that was many years ago. And you had the Easter egg hunt on there. You didn't bring that up.
I'm sorry.
Brianna Danner's Easter egg hunt.
Right, that was on Saturday. The Councilor Clark and the mayor and I were there, and they raised that day just over $9,200 for Brianna and her family, and it was a beautiful day and a great venue. I think it was a perfect venue. It's a much larger venue, and the fire truck came, and some of our police officers came, and had many generous donations, raffle tickets. And I think everybody had a great time, and it's a great event. I had friends from Tigard and Tualatin and Portland who came down to do the event, and it's a great tribute to Sherwood and Sherwood citizens in our community who will band together to help somebody out who is in great need. And obviously, the McCabe's are the reason for that happening every year, and I had the pleasure of going to dinner afterwards with their core group of people, and it's just something that they live to do. And it was a very happy day, not so necessarily a happy circumstance, but a very happy day. And I think everybody had a great time, and I look forward to future egg hunts. It would be great if we didn't have to have an egg hunt for somebody who has cancer, but that's the reality of life. And so I want to congratulate the committee for Hunt for Hope and the McCabe's for continuing to volunteer selflessly in our community every year, and this event just seems to grow and grow every year. So that's it.
One thing I wanted to bring forward, I don't know if anybody knew the former King City Police Chief Tom Krause. He passed away 2 days ago. He had throat cancer, and he passed away. So he was a really good guy. He was the chief in King City when I was here, probably about 10 years. He was chief there, so real good guy. Other than that, I want to thank Robin and Linda for a meeting we had last week after the meeting, and I think things are going to work a lot better here. We're going to get off these topics that are taking us off course. We're going to just do council business for the citizens. We're no longer going to air our petty differences, hopefully. So from there, and then I was also confronted by my wife, so I do have to apologize for my behavior last meeting. I don't get cable TV, so I won't get to see it on TV. I'll just have to tell her it went well. So other than that, not much going on other than everything that's going on. So Staff.
Mayor and Council, I have a few items. I'll try to be quick, mostly informational for the public. First, Julia sent me this information in mid-May, on May 15th, about a month from now, in this room. It says City Hall. So there's going to be a meeting that DEQ is organizing and sponsoring, and it's about the former Ken Foster farm site that some long-term residents will remember. That's the site. It's 40 acres off of Murdoch Road. The DEQ has conducted some studies on the site and will hold a public informational meeting to review the report and risk assessment on May 15th from 6:30 to 8:30 in City Hall in this room. We'll have that on our website, and we also put that in the Archer that should be arriving in people's mailboxes any day now. So I wanted to make sure folks knew that. The other thing is ballots will be mailed out in early May.
Thank you.
You have Sherwood residents have 5 charter amendments to vote on in that May election. And then Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue has a levy on the ballot as well. So there are items for Sherwood residents to weigh in on in May. And the election is May 20th, if I recall correctly. So you should be seeing your ballots in the mail soon. It is budget time. I will release the city manager's recommended budget on May 2nd. And then the first budget meeting will be Wednesday, May 14th at 6 p.m. in this room. And then we're going to try something different this year. We're going to have a Saturday morning public hearing on May 17th at 9 a.m. We're going to see if we get more public participation on a Saturday morning. People are very busy, and sometimes on a weeknight they can't get here because of family or other kind of things. So we're going to see if we get more public participation on a Saturday morning rather than just limiting it to weeknights. We'll see. And then people have mentioned a number of events. April 26th, Trashapalooza is happening. I know Naomi is here and has been working hard with a bunch of folks. It is a solve event. Is it 10 a.m.? 10 to noon at Cannery Plaza. That information is also on the website, and it's in the Sherwood Archer, and there are certainly signs around town that I've seen everywhere. So that will be the second year. It was a really good event last year, and it'll probably be bigger and better on the 26th. So that's all I had, unless you had questions for me or any of my department heads.
Did you have more on that, Naomi?
Not on that. I did have just one question for the chief of police, and just if you have time for one citizen comment.
No, we did those earlier. We save it for next meeting.
Okay.
We do them first now. That way you guys don't have. Yeah, and the chief will be here next time. Right. Thank you.
Should we make a motion to adjourn?
Chris?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.